The thing we're most excited about is the opportunity, just a tremendous opportunity that not everybody gets. Some people go a lifetime without having an opportunity like our team has. And through our talent and through our hard work, we've created this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in on this Friday, the eve of New Year's Eve. Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. And we are getting ready for tomorrow right now. That was Jim Harbaugh, Michigan head coach at the Fiesta Bowl, talking about his team and talking about an opportunity. And, there's a lot of things going through your mind right now if you're a Michigan fan. And an opportunity is a good one. I don't know if the seed is planted there for you or not. You've had a long time to think about this one. And, here we are getting ready for it tomorrow. But it is a great opportunity for Michigan and one that you've waited for. And it's sitting right there in front of you. And you folks that are out there watching or listening to this today, you love this Michigan team. And it's not a surprise if I would have told you that you'd be sitting here with an undefeated, 13-0 Michigan team on the eve of getting ready to play in the college football playoff where they were a 7.5-point favorite. You'd say, boy, I really like that team. I love them. And you do. And you got a lot of reasons. And you got a lot of reasons to be confident about Michigan tomorrow. And that's where I'm sitting here today. And we'll talk about this game and we'll give you the latest from the Fiesta Bowl. And we'll talk about, how we see this thing playing out tomorrow. But, I just think before I, get to any specifics, and Jim Harbaugh and what he's been able to do in these 2 years to put Michigan in the college football playoff, it is a great story. But, Jim Harbaugh did a couple things this year. And the one we all know is, he went with J.J. McCarthy over a starting quarterback that won the Big Ten in the first time in almost 20 years and had a quarterback competition in the first 2 games that, I'd never seen any coach do in the history of college football. And Harbaugh did it. And, that it could have backfired in a lot of different ways. But it didn't, and, as we know. And J.J. McCarthy came out and was perfect, great in those first 2 games for the tryout where there wasn't much of a, if we were handicapping it and we all were about, okay, this play, that play, it was pretty obvious to everybody, even Cade McNamara, who was going to be the starter the rest of the way. And, from there, I just was thinking back about the things that we talked about in the off season about, Michigan had a lot of depth and they had a very explosive offense, but they were going to pass the ball a lot more just because of the talent that they had out there. And, they ended up, staying with their identity, Jim Harbaugh's identity of, we're going to control the line of scrimmage and we're going to be a running team. Sure. They're going to pass the ball. They're going to be able to throw the ball. They're going to be able to score points. They scored over 40 points per game. But, there's a lot of surprising aspects with this team. And, thinking about what the biggest surprise is, and the biggest surprise is the defense. That a defense that lost 25 sacks and all of the TFLs from Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo and how they were going to replace those guys. Well, sometimes you hear the coaches say things you think, boy, that sounds so much like coach speak. And it sounded like coach speak when Harbaugh was like, well, we're going to do it. Basically what he said is by committee. We got a lot of no stars, but by the end of the year, these guys are going to be stars. And, they not only replaced that production, but they surpassed the production of Ajabo and Hutchinson. That part is amazing. And you go back and you think about before the season started and, you listen to, not just Michigan people, you listen to college football, experts, people just opining about Michigan and say, also the Wolverines lost both of their coordinators. That's going to be difficult, to replace Mike McDonald and a guy who won the Broyles Award and Josh Gaddis. And Michigan was able to do that. And then Harbaugh with an interesting twist on that, doing something that I've never seen, again, any other college football coach do, come in with co-offense and defensive coordinators with Weissmore on offense and Minterklink on defense. And, I don't remember exactly what game it was. Fox did so many games with Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt, but Joel Klatt was all upset. He was kind of upset. He sounded upset. I'll say he's upset because he gets a chance to talk with the coordinators through the week. And, he was like relaying his experience. And he's like, I was pressing these guys about who's making the, and those guys didn't budge. And, if Michigan would have dropped a game, everybody that would look at Michigan and you have to explain what went wrong. Well, that would be part of it. They'd say, well, you had too many cooks in the kitchen. Whether it was a defensive letdown or an offensive letdown, you could have picked because they had two on both sides, and you could have said, this is never going to work, and we knew it wasn't going to work, and yet it did. And Harbaugh did a lot of different things like that, even in the final regular season game against Ohio State in Columbus. Harbaugh went with a jump pass with a linebacker that was just converted in the drive of the year with Khalil Mullings. Nobody expected to do that. It was completely out of character, and that works. So there are a lot of things that I sit around and think about. The other thing that I think about is that this is a team. I mentioned Hutchinson and Ajabo. If you would have told me that Michigan is going to lose their MVP, that Blake Corum would end up being the MVP of the Michigan season, I would have bought that. Actually, that's who I predicted to be my MVP this year. But if you had said, hey, he's going to go down after the first half, even though he came back for a play in the second half, and you're going to lose him in the home finale, you're not going to have him, even though he had a carry or two against Ohio State, but you're not going to have your MVP for the second half of Illinois and really the entire game against Ohio State. And you're going to have to go with an injured backup with with a cast on his right hand. I'd say, oh man. Oh, I don't think so. I don't think that's going to work. And then, and I think of JJ McCarthy, and I mentioned Cade McNamara earlier. I think Michigan could have gone, you can have your opinion, and I'll just say there's no real reason to argue about it. So I'll just give you my opinion. I think if Cade McNamara, if he would have won, if he had played well enough and he would have won that quarterback battle, I think Michigan could have gone 11-0. But I don't think that they would have beat Ohio State with Cade McNamara. And I remember last year when Michigan was in this situation against Georgia and it was all said and done, there were a lot of people saying, Michigan needs to match up. They need a playmaker at quarterback. That's how they're going to be able to take the next step. And I agreed with that. And the JJ McCarthy all through the year, and then the passing game just wasn't clicking. It wasn't hitting on all cylinders. I mean, we can all agree on that heading into that Ohio State game. Certainly the bombs down the field, I just, whatever it was, not on the same page. I think the receivers were pressing a little bit. I think McCarthy was pressing a little bit, so much so that, that seemed like it was a hole in their game, and yet they were able to hit on those plays. And the confidence has to be sky high. And I was thinking, would I have rather had McCarthy in like 3 or 4 games against Rutgers or Nebraska or Michigan State, hit those downfield passes and then not do it against Ohio State? How would I feel about him now? Or if he waited to the biggest game of his life in Michigan's one of their greatest games ever, one of their greatest wins ever, if he would put on the performance like he did, I would go. But the way that it turned out, and the confidence now for young JJ McCarthy was just a true sophomore. I think that's why you sit where you are at and you think about tomorrow and you are so confident. Michigan is good everywhere on their team. We were talking about the keys. I get a lot of different keys and things to talk about, but Michigan almost, you go, player by player, position group, any phase of the game. They got it. They're tremendous on offense, they're tremendous on defense, and they're fantastic on special teams. All right, that's pretty good. But they're the best up front. And that's what you want. You want to be the best up front and be a physical football team, and Michigan is that. And I just look at these four quarterbacks that are in this semifinal. Stetson Bennett the fourth, who was a Heisman finalist. That was a choice by the national media that voted for that thing to give him a lifetime achievement award. But he was there, and he's had a nice season, and he is a defending champion, national champion quarterback. And Stetson Bennett, for as much as I just sound like I was dogging on him there, he played a hell of a game. I watched Georgia play against Tennessee. He was great in that game. He was whipping the ball down the field. He was actually, I was going to say every bit as good as Hendon Hooker. He was better than Hooker in that game. He was dialing up his receivers down the field, hitting them in stride. He was great. But I like J.J. McCarthy more than I like Stetson Bennett the fourth. And then C.J. Stroud, I don't have to say anything about Stroud. McCarthy just beat him head-to-head. And so Duggan, who won the Davey Bryant Award for the best quarterback, he deserved it. Everybody likes him. You watch him. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He plays hard. He's like Rocky, and going up against Balboa or going up against Apollo, it seemed like he'll be able to get up off the mat at any point. He's somebody to root for, Big Red and everything. But, would I take J.J. McCarthy over Max Duggan? Without trying to be like, you're going to pick the Michigan guy? I'd pick J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy's got at least one more year, probably two. Hopefully two, potentially two, however you want to look at. The point about all that is that to get to the showcase and to be able to not only have a shot, but to have a real legitimate shot to win it, I feel like you got to match up at quarterback. And Michigan matches up at quarterback, and Michigan looks like they match up everywhere out there. The more that I look at it, the more I think about it, and the more I talk about it, and there I am. That's my open for today. Welcome in. On this eve of New Year's Eve, we'll be talking about Michigan today and the opportunity that they have tomorrow. We'll get you the latest from the Fiesta Bowl, and I've got some predictions for you as well. And we just started talking about that opportunity. You always have the opportunity here to get in and put your thoughts out, and we are able to communicate that way for the Michigan fans, for the people, just to see where you are at. Coming up, I'm sitting here 24, 25, 26, 27 hours away, because they're going to kick it off at 4:10 tomorrow. So a little bit less. Right around now, they're going to be kicking it off 27 hours. Talk about, counting it down in Times Square. We're counting it down right here. Richard has it nailed. The excitement is palpable. It is palpable. It is a great spot to be if you are a Michigan fan, which Account 22 is. I know that because I've seen him here all year long, and his avatar is a Michigan Wolverine. He said that the Bucs are getting confident. They think they will crush Georgia. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen myself. I've seen a lot of people weighing in. And what was I watching last night? Washington and Texas. And, the analysts over there, and the one guy, he was all about Ohio State, and he was all about TCU. I'm like, okay, I'll bet you on that one. I feel real good about Michigan. I feel good. I think Georgia's going to smash Ohio State, but that's weird to say that, you want Ohio State to have some success, even if they lose, but, that is the way you want it to happen. But, hey, it can happen anyway. It's going to happen. Michigan comes through. Bring it on. If it's going to be Georgia, I think you should feel pretty good about it. And I think the Michigan team will feel really good about it. Ron taking a shot at Michigan State, and hey, I get that. Part about uh, I hear somebody. Let's see, there's some people coming in, maybe down from Texas or East Lansing. Hey, the more popular the show gets, the more we're not just all sitting around with a bunch of Michigan fans. Here's somebody that's coming in talking about wearing ankle monitors or something. No, Stu, you don't have to wear ankle monitors. I don't know what backwoods hillbilly uh, library you're sitting at right now. But when you have a misdemeanor, you don't have to wear an ankle bracelet, you dummy. What are we talking about here? That's what you got. That's one of the stupidest feedbacks that we have taken, and we've taken some stupid ones. But here you go, Stu. You give those end of the year awards out. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna not let anybody else win it. The polls are closed. Stu, you win the stupidest feedback of 2022. Congratulations, Stu. You got to feel good wherever you're at down there in the woods, chewing tobacco, spitting in a cup back there at the library. They're probably going to take that card away from you, you dummy. Let's keep it rolling here. Wow. Let's keep it classy. That goes for yours. Myself. I say yours truly. I don't know if I've ever called myself yours truly, but I think it works in this spot. Kenneth watched some of the practice and saw the early recruits getting reps. That was cool. Yeah. Yeah, I like that too. First time seeing the guys in the maize and blue. It's there's only one first time that way. Being out in bowl practice. I like that. We got somebody asking me a trivia question. It is none other than the great Hadley. Let's see where he's at. A trivia question for you. Michigan recently went back-to-back seasons unbeaten at home. When was the last time they went back-to-back unbeaten at home? I think it was during the Bow era. Happy New Year. Oh, so you're giving me, so I should just go right back to the Bow era where Michigan was, I don't know, back-to-back unbeaten at home, huh? Because I think Harbaugh seemed like he was ringing the bell on at least one. But you're saying it's not from Harbaugh, and if it was from Bow, how about I'll give you was it 84? I'm going to go, 85, 86. I'll go 85, 86. Hadley. If I don't go there, I'll go 75, 76. 85, 86 or 75? 76. Those are my guesses. Ron hopes Stroud gets Tua out there. Okay, not the maybe the nicest thing. I'm not hoping for anybody to get injured, and then I think people are coming after you. But you do that. I don't really think you mean anything by it. I understand it myself. I had two instances in my sports broadcasting career that I wish I could take back. One of them, I'll tell you both of them really quick. One of them was when Grant Hill left the Pistons to go to the Magic. I was on the air and I said, I hope he fractures his ankle and never able to play basketball again. Well, the first person that called in and said, hey, Dennis, you like basketball yourself. You enjoy playing. And I said, it's my favorite thing I love doing. It's basketball. And he said, well, you're taking that away from Grant Hill and he just left. You're just mad, and I thought, I am mad. But I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to take that away from Grant Hill. And then, but the topper was that he fractured his ankle and he really was never the same player again. So I don't feel like it was me wishing that upon him, but I almost immediately had regret about that. And the other one where I also felt guilty was when Michigan was playing, was it 2004 against Michigan State? I was on a Friday out at a car dealership in Ann Arbor. and I was broadcasting with a former Michigan All-American, Rod Payne. And Rod was so fired up about the game. He was throwing chairs across the parking lot. I mean, he was fired up. And I got in there and I said, who's going to knock Stanton out of the game? Who's going to be the one that knocks him out of the game? Who's the Wolverine? We're taking the call. Let's go to Jim. Jim would say, I think it's going to be. And I said, I think Lamar Woodley will knock Drew Stanton out of the game. Lamar Woodley knocked Drew Stanton out of the game. And I felt terrible. Later, when I was working, covering the Lions, Drew Stanton and his wife came out to this pizzeria in Southfield, and I was talking to Drew Stanton. Drew Stanton he's the nicest guy in the world. I know he went to Michigan State. Still the nicest guy in the world. I loved him. Sat around, and I didn't tell him, boy, Drew, I got to apologize to you, but I felt bad. So, Ron, you don't really mean that, And he's saying, he doesn't mean it. He's just saying it. Count 22 will take JJ over any of the quarterbacks. Uh-oh, it's Shane. He's in Scottsdale. Oh, Shane, get that camera ready. I'm expecting another picture coming up tomorrow. Shane says, look for me in the corner end zone, first row, wearing my custom Will Johnson jersey with my blue and maize banner. I was going to say, how am I going to pick you out of the crowd? A custom Will Johnson jersey with a maize and blue banner in the end zone in the first row. Okay, I'm going to look for you, Shane. Those who stay will wear the buffs and will, I get it, will, capital W, like Will Johnson, be champions. Go blue. Go ahead and give you a little star there. Boom. Happy New Year, Shane. I'm going to be looking for you. I'm going to be recording the game. And we'll take a look and see if I can go back. I'm sure you're recording the game too, Shane, and you'll have that chance. It's always, I remember a Sports Illustrated picture of Michigan being out at the Rose Bowl, and somebody caught a touchdown. But you look into the crowd, and somebody's there with like a Michigan shirt on, and it's like the greatest picture of all time. You think, wow. What an opportunity if you're like sitting in the stands and the play happened right in front of you. It was a great play in a big time game, and there you are. Reminds me of Jim Harbaugh. Didn't Jim Harbaugh? Was it? It wouldn't have been Desmond Howard. He wouldn't have been young enough then. Maybe it was Desmond. Or was it Rick Leach? Rick Leach, that sounds more like it. Rick Leach scores a big touchdown against Ohio State, and the ball boy in the corner, it's a memorable Michigan photo. The ball boy in the corner is like reaching out, he's like handing the ball or whatever else. And if you look close, it's Jim Harbaugh as a youngster in the Michigan end zone with Rick Leach. The position one day that Harbaugh will play. And then the position that Harbaugh, when he has a championship quarterback, when he's the head coach, that he will also be compared to J.J. McCarthy and Jim Harbaugh. Oh, man. Yeah, what do they say? You get caught up in your feelings. I think today's a day that you can get caught up in your feelings about Michigan, and I think you should. Let those feelings just, let them just kind of roll through you, and let them just come out to the surface. Good feelings. You're not like Ron's earlier. That was just some aggression. Work out a little bit. Work that aggression out. JJ runs better. JJ throws better. Hell, JJ's golden lettuce is even better than all of them. I agree, Antoine. All right, let's get back and let's get you the latest from the Fiesta Bowl. 27 hours around now, less than 27 hours till kickoff. There were the three wide receivers, Amarian Walker, the true freshman, included in that were seen in the open portion of practice earlier this week, not dressed and not participating in practice. Yesterday, that changed. Andrell Anthony, number 1. A.J. Henning, number 3, were both dressed fully and practicing with the maize and blue in the open portion of practice yesterday. I would say that that's very good news. They say these guys are trending in the right direction, and notable that they were dressed and in full participation in practice, at least in the open part. So your guess is as good as mine, knowing that information. But also, I was looking at a TV reporter from Toledo. I'd say his name. I must say, I think it's Strack. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's Strack. And he was out there and he had an interview with Anthony that he put on Twitter. And he asked him, "Hey, Andrella, are you going to play Saturday?" If he said, "I'm playing, I'm practicing, I feel good, I'm ready to go." He almost said it more than like, "Yes, 100%, I'm in." So that sounded good. Now, players can say all of that and they can be held out. So it's not one, but those are good signs. Both of those, actually, all three of those things, that Anthony and Henning were both out there participating, and then Anthony telling that he is good to go and plans to play. I mean, those are all good things for Michigan. I think that is good news, and that's the latest from practice. Today they're not going to be doing much except walking through, getting those final reminders. Richard, like JJ, when he found out that he was a hockey player growing up, makes a lot of sense with the way he runs. I agree with that. I think for whatever this is worth, and for me, it's the older you get, you watch a lot of football games, you see a lot of news conferences, you see a lot of interviews with coaches, and you hear a lot of what people are talking about. And for me, with Michigan, and it really goes back to it's really all year long. The way JJ McCarthy handles himself as a sophomore, I like everything that he says. When he was trying to connect down the field, he was like, he was talking about his shoulder, and it was close, and he just got to put the ball on, and he thought it was going to happen, and he just didn't have the reps. But he was staying in a very positive mindset about being able to connect with the receivers downfield. And I remember right after the Michigan State game that before all the nonsense, that Blake Corum, I think he was walking up the tunnel with Jim Harbaugh, and Harbaugh said that Corum was like, "We're on to the next game. We're on to Rutgers." Like right after beating Michigan State. It wasn't like, "Hey, we're going to enjoy this for the next hour or two, or tomorrow, 24-hour rule or whatever else." No, they were on to Rutgers in the tunnel. I liked it. I liked the mindset. I liked that approach. And then it's continued all the way through. When I hear these guys talk, and this time around, I do feel like that experience. I mean, you can make too much of that Michigan had the experience last year, and we're able to play in the college football playoff and went through everything. It's like, hey, this is a different team, and that stuff that the media likes to focus in on or whatever else. But a lot of these guys going through it, and now they had the bitter taste of losing to Georgia, and I hear them talk about it. I feel like that is a bonus for them. I think it's going to help them. It's helping them right now. It's going to help them tonight. And it's going to help them tomorrow during the game. And then about that game tomorrow, I like the matchup. We talk about matchups, and how many times you hear somebody like that has a microphone say it's all about matchups. Hey, sports is all about matchups. Michigan TCU is a really good matchup for Michigan. TCU, I don't think, is going to be able to stop Michigan's run. I think that that's going to help Michigan get ahead of the chains. I think that's going to allow Michigan to have the kind of down and distance that they can dial up some passes. I feel like JJ McCarthy will have success both running and throwing the ball. I think Michigan will be able to hit some big plays. I think their physicality is something that at the end of the day, that the broadcasters are going to be talking about, like, Michigan, they have an identity and they have played to it, and it has allowed them to pick and choose what they wanted to do on offense. Meanwhile, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. Michigan, they don't look like, I don't even sound like, boy, they have no weaknesses, but they're a good team. I like their offense. What am I going to say? Like, they're weak at wide receiver? Is that what I'm going to say? They needed, I don't think I think the wide receivers, you could say, I wouldn't say they're overrated. I would say that they've, they didn't hit, and there's potential there. I don't want to say they were underutilized, so I don't want to say overrated. They just didn't fulfill their potential this year. And there were some injuries in there, but Cornelius Johnson, it was the passing game. They were pressing heading into the Ohio State game, but I feel like the weight of the passing game and the receivers and McCarthy, that the weight has been lifted. I think they're extremely confident in their passing game and the receivers that they have. I believe they do have talent. If I had to pick and choose player by player or position group by position group, the two that I would go to and look on offense for TCU, I would say that their wide receivers, I would give them the check mark if I was going to give the check mark. But I think Michigan is capable. Their wide receivers, and I know the DBs play the wide receivers, so it's not really, apples to apples. But I think Michigan's wide receivers can have as big of an effect as TCU's. But, I would give that check mark. And where else would I do it? Do I think Duggan running the ball over J.J. McCarthy? Am I giving the quarterback check mark to Max Duggan? Well, he did it for longer in the season than JJ, but JJ didn't lose a game. And there were so many close games. You can say that's a good thing because if it's a close game, TCU has been there. That's fine. Michigan's number one in point differential in the country. I like that part for Michigan, but that's me trying to. I don't want to just take every single position group and say Michigan. Am I going to put a check mark next to every single position group and every single player and put it next to Michigan? Michigan. What about the DBs? Michigan. Special teams? Michigan. Defense? Michigan. So it's pretty close. At quarterback, I'll give Duggan the check mark. But I think, like the wide receivers, that J.J. McCarthy can outplay Max Duggan. And I think he's going to. I want to say something about yesterday's show. I was putting some numbers up in my keys to the game, and I got to red zone offense and defense for Michigan. Let them score between the 20s, buckle down in the red zone, and hold them to field goals, at least there. And that's going to be one of the keys to the game for Michigan. And TCU's offense struggled in the red zone this year, struggled compared to the rest of their numbers. It really stood out. They're 81st, I think, in red zone offense. Not very good when you're talking about it. And Michigan was 31st overall in red zone D, if you recall, when I put those numbers up. And I don't want to get too, bombard you with numbers. But I was listening to Joel Klatt today. And Joel Klatt started talking about his keys to the game. And he mentioned Michigan's red zone defense. And I'm like, me and Joel Klatt are kind of looking at it the same way. And Joel Klatt went specifically to red zone touchdown percentage. I went to overall red zone defense and had Michigan at 31st. So when I heard Joel Klatt say, and Michigan has only given up 2 touchdowns in their last 10, and their red zone touchdown efficiency is number 3 in the country. Georgia's number 1. Michigan, number 3, that's better than the overall, the 31st that I had. Boy, if I would have been armed with that number, I would have been coming at you with that one yesterday. But those are pretty good numbers for Michigan. I remember from the beginning of the year, because of the non-conference and, the blowouts there. And I said, I'm not getting involved. And Michigan's like, and, their Twitter people and their social media, we're putting up all these things like JJ, passing efficiency, running the football. The numbers were just out of this world. And it's just like, come on, I'm not going with Michigan number 1 in offense, number 1 in defense, number 1 in everything. yet. I was like, I'm going to wait. And I said after the Penn State game, I thought that was at least, it was halfway point of data that then I would start using it. Well, Michigan was really good, and especially in the second half against Penn State when they slammed the door after that field goal they gave up. And then they were really good the rest of the year. And the numbers are incredible for Michigan defensively. And the best thing about Michigan defensively is that they get better as the game goes on. I like everything with Michigan right now. That's why I've just been focusing on the game tomorrow, but I can't wait for Michigan to win the game and start looking at whoever they're going to play in the championship game. If that happens, because Michigan's got a great chance to win it all. Let's get some more feedback up here. Yeah, JJ does have Wolverine hair, no doubt. Jason, we salute Jason. One more wake up, ladies and gents. This is why we play the game. 125 other teams want to be in this position, yet here we are as a team. Focus up, strap them up, and now let's shut them up. Go Blue. And star that one too. Good job, Jason. I like it. Get some different feedback here. Elijah pointing out that TCU runs a 3-3-5 defense. So does Ohio State. Well, Elijah, I'm no football coach, but I do look at the defenses, and true enough, TCU does run a 3-3-5, and Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator, has 3-3-5 concepts that he has with that Ohio State defense. But no, I would not put the Ohio State defense necessarily as a 3-3-5, but they do have some, principles. And Knowles did run a lot of that at Oklahoma State, and then he did bring some of that into Columbus. But yeah, good luck with that 3-3-5. That's, and I try not to be biased too much about the 3-3-5, but that's what Rich Rod was running. And I was ready to run Rich Rod out of town a lot because Rich Rod was like, he didn't care about defense. He didn't care about special teams. He'd laugh about it. And that 3-3-5, you're too small in the Big Ten. And they'll punch you in the face and they'll wear you down. And that's what happened with the little Michigan players with Rodriguez and the 3-3-5. I can remember Rodriguez. I'll never forget it because he thought he was being funny. And, it wasn't funny because the question was, hey, Rich, the three, it was like the 3-3-5 and how it was tough to stand up at the point of attack. And Rodriguez was like, nah, I don't look over there at the defense. Once in a while, I kick the door open. And it's just like, what is he talking about? It was such a bad fit. Rich Rod and the 3-3-5. Troy wants this game to start. His anxiety is way up. And Troy, no reason to be tight for this one. Be excited. Embrace the, that you've got a lot of messages flying through your head and, a lot of these feelings. Let that well up. Use it to your advantage. Can't really get out and go run outside, at least if you're in and around Ann Arbor. It's raining cats and dogs right now. Do something. Sweep the rug. AJ likes talking 3-3-5. And he says, even JJ mentioned the 3-3-5. Said if they ran that at Michigan, if they run that, Michigan is going to run all over them. Yeah. I got some no, I don't have some 3-3-5 stuff. I got some JJ stuff. Yeah, here we go. Guns. Stu is not like anywhere he goes. Well, I trust you on that. If you come in acting a fool like for the first time, I'm going to say you're a fool. First impression of Stu. You're a fool, Stu. But you made a mark and you won an award. The 2022 Good Afternoon Michigan Football Maize and Blue Reviews Jackass of the Year goes to Stu. So he won that. Or as Fred Sanford would say, you big dummy. What he called Lamont. Stu. Hey, Stu. What you doing tonight? Eddie's talking misdemeanors. He's had a few. And he never had to wear an ankle bracelet. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have anything on ankle bracelets and misdemeanors or felonies or anything. Luckily, Leo he's tired of pregame analysis. Let's go. I'm going to, I hear you, Leo. There was a time, you might not believe it, that it was like this morning. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? I've said everything about this game. But then you just sit back and then you start firing. I'm ready to as well. Let's get to some other things. So I like the matchup. The vibe is good. And I got some broadcast stuff that I wanted to show you here. So you get tomorrow, you get the 4:10 kickoff. You've got Sean McDonough and Todd Blackledge on the call. Blackledge, the former Penn State quarterback, will be the color analyst. McDonough, famous for famous for a lot of things. I liked this year. What was the game where, it was against Michigan State. Michigan State had trouble with the snap, and McDonough is very popular for the 2015 call against Michigan. And then he was able to full circle it and say trouble with the snap for Michigan State. I like that. Those guys will be on the regular ESPN channel with Molly McGrath covering the Michigan sideline and a young lady named Tiffany Blackman over on the TCU sideline. However, you get to this point and you have options. And I want you to think about this one for a second, because here are the options. ESPN runs a mega cast. No, they're not going to have that's not a Manning cast, a mega cast for tomorrow. For the Fiesta Bowl, their main ESPN will have McDonough and Blackledge. But a lot of times Michigan fans are like, I'm tired of Blackledge talking about Sonny Dykes like he's his son. Well, you've got opportunity here to try something else. Now, on ESPN2, you got Pat McAfee. I didn't know he was a TCU guy, but he's going to be doing TCU hometown radio. Maybe he'll be involved with the TCU radio crew, and then he'll just be there. Maybe this is when TCU because weren't they in the Big East or I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Pat McAfee, I don't know what his tie-in is with TCU, but he's there. But here's the one that's interesting for you. Command Center, ESPNU. I have ESPNU, and they will have the Michigan hometown radio that you can elect to watch instead of McDonough and Blackledge, and that will be Doug Karsh and John Jansen, if you elect to do that. Now, maybe you don't like, Doug or John. So I say that like I'd be like, I'm friends with those guys, so I'd say, I would watch that. I'm definitely going to check it out. But people are like, I don't like those guys. Fair enough, and it can be. You have the ability now, and I do this occasionally. I do it a lot with Dan Dickerson in baseball. I will sync up my phone. Sometimes I have to hit pause when, and then you play around with it a little bit. And then sometimes it gets thrown off. You sync up the radio with the TV. I've done that in the past. And they have the ability now, technology is awesome, where there are different apps. I know Michigan Hockey has one. I've used it where you can they sync it up with the TV. However they're able to do that, they do it. And so you can listen to, for example, Al Randall, who does Michigan Hockey when they're on instead of whoever they're throwing out there. But it is a little different, it can throw you off. It's not what you're used to listening to the radio broadcast. And then when it comes down to the TV, and certainly you can't be flipping around, but you can tomorrow. So maybe you have the option. It's nice to have options. I think I will tape McDonough and company, and I think I will watch Doug and John and see how that goes. It's a nice option to have. I think for the championship game, if my memory serves, like they'll have 4 channels, and some of them will have like, there's the Harbaugh cam down in the lower corner, which I was a fan of. Just a camera on Harbaugh. I think they called it the khaki cam. I like the khaki cam, but you get some of like the I know it said all 22 on there, but you get like the end zone shot, and then you got guys sitting around doing a talk show. Now that could be that is like the Manning cast where they're over here like, BSing around and like, oh yeah, touchdown. I remember when I threw that touchdown, Peyton, at Ole Miss. Wait a second, you guys watching the game or not? So it's entertainment. You can do a little bit of that, but they'll have things like that for the championship game where they got a bunch of dudes sitting around a couch, eating and drinking and talking about the game. And, some people like that, but you have the radio opportunity I wanted to tell everybody about there. So if you want to take advantage of it, I'm going to say it's neither here or there, but I put it up on the screen anyways. I'd never heard of this. And yet here it is. There's this picture of this trophy that looks like it's a wild looking trophy. It's got a football up top, but then it's got like, I don't know, like you would say something that you would see in like a ceramic, or is this something that looks like it could be a villain in Star Wars? And then you get a couple gold leaves, and then what looks like some football players, and then I don't know, something that looks like you can have over at the Taj Mahal within some like Greek statues underneath. It's a real wild looking trophy, but apparently it is the Fiesta Bowl trophy. And not only is it just this wild looking trophy, but the Fiesta Bowl put a tweet out saying that the trophy cost $2.5 million. The football on top is $1 million football because it has 2,200 diamonds in it, and it weighs 285 pounds. Now, I saw that, and it was verified underneath. Like I thought maybe this was a joke, but then you look, and it's not. It's very excessive. If they were asking me, like I like a trophy as much as anyone, but what I want my trophy to weigh 285 pounds. I would like to be able to hand the trophy to the winner and let them, get a photo opportunity of it. Who's getting a photo opportunity with this thing? And look, art is in the eye of the beholder. But are you really telling me if we were all sitting around and you'd say, what do you think of this piece? And I would look at it and I would say, you got a lot going on there. It's a pretty busy piece. And the football really doesn't match in with this like dome here. And these like eyes with the alien. And then what is this like middle piece? None of this really, I would say, let me see a couple other renditions. And then if they handed me the price tag and said it was $2.5 million, I'd say, well, what in the hell are we doing here? But I don't know, maybe you are familiar with the Fiesta Bowl trophy. Michigan's only played in the Fiesta Bowl one other time back in the day. But yeah, I didn't like that. Let's take some more feedback. Let's go to Chris. Chris asking the question, is there anything that gives you slight trepidation about this game? Confidence is great and hope is great, but what would the thing that would give you slight pause be? Yeah, hope is not a strategy, and for a fan, it's good to have. You can't really do anything. I am confident. I think the slight trepidation would be that TCU has a hell of an offense, and they have a great quarterback, and you have a guy that can both throw and run, and he's got good receivers. And it's not just one receiver. He's got multiple receivers. I think that's where the slight pause comes in. I think the other part is that just where you see Duggan, if he gets through like Michigan's, zeroing in on the pocket and he just steps up through the first wave of defenders and then he's taking off and he's running. And then he's finding his receivers in the middle of that zone. He's high pointing the ball to Quentin Johnston at 6'4", who's a big play receiver and could be the first pick in the as a wide receiver in the NFL draft. Those are the things that give me pause. That's it. That's where I'm at. But the reason that I think that I think Michigan's offense can match that firepower. I also think that Michigan's defense, I think that Michigan's going to give up 29 points, but I think they can score a lot more. And I think that when I look at Michigan's secondary, especially the guys coming on like Will Johnson that we all keep talking about, but Michigan's got a lot of corners. They got a lot of safeties. And they got a lot of rush edges that can get after a QB. I like all of that. I feel like, when you say he's confident, and Michigan has been able to make adjustments and make them on the fly, and they've been better as the game goes on. Those are things that I like. I think this game, again, is going to go like pretty much how we have seen games go this year for Michigan. Michigan will score a touchdown on their first drive that they get. TCU will have some success. And I think this will be a, 14-13 game at the half. Like almost every game for Michigan this year in, after the non-conference. And then I think Michigan will adjust, and I think they will pull away by the fourth quarter with their running game because of their physicality, because their offensive line is athletic and they can get out and pull and get into the second level of TCU. And I think Donovan Edwards can run wild. And I think Donovan Edwards will run wild. And you might say these are hot takes because they have big numbers next to them, but I've made some predictions here, specific ones, and let me get those to you. First, I want to tell you that you're running out of time, as you know, this year. But you could still give the gift of the Maize and Blue Review here in 2022. And since it's for an entire year, it matches up really good on the eve of New Year's Eve. Go to michigan.rivals.com. You can get access today. You want to know about recruiting. You want to know what's going on with the latest of this game. Get in there. Posting board talking about Michigan, football, basketball, other sports. It's all there. I'm there all the time. I hope to see you on the Maize and Blue Review. Here's some predictions for you. I think Donovan Edwards is going to run for 250 yards tomorrow. Now you could say that's a big number. It is a big number. But he's ran for damn near 200 yards his last two games. In fact, he ran for 216 on the road against Ohio State. I thought that was pretty impressive. Donovan Edwards ran for 185 yards against Purdue. So he is averaging 200 yards. Is Donovan Edwards. I think that he can have 250 yards on the ground. That's how good I think he is. And that's my prediction. Now, Edwards had 22 carries against Ohio State, and he had 25 carries against Purdue. You can say, I think that's a little bit too many. Well, it would be about where he's been in terms of carrying the ball in the last two games. He had 25 against Purdue, and he had 22 against Ohio State. 25 is not outlandish. And I don't think 250 yards is out of the question. If you told me, what about 250 all-purpose yards? I'd say, yeah, I think that can happen. But I'm going 250 just on the ground. Meanwhile, I think J.J. McCarthy is also going to be heavily involved in running the football. And I think J.J. McCarthy will get 100 yards on the ground. The one-armed bandit, 250. McCarthy with the Wolverine hair, 100 running the ball. Call it hot, go whatever you want. I believe it. That's where I'm going with it. As far as the game is concerned, my prediction, I like Michigan over Texas Christian University by a score of 38-29. That covers the point spread, and it takes this game way over. In the nightcap, I like the Bulldogs to bulldoze the Buckeyes by 10, 40-30. I think it'll be Michigan, Georgia in the championship game that'll be played on January the 9th, and we'll be talking about that come Monday for the next week. I was going to say, obviously. I mean, it is pretty obvious. Honestly, that we'll be talking about it. And so I can't wait for that. We'll get our last predictions and things like that in here. TCU saying their players and coaches are overconfident. They're saying wild things in press conferences. Yeah, they are saying some wild things at Count 22. I just let them talk, I think Sonny Dykes and, those guys, I think you get down to Texas, people in Texas are different. The United States is a big country. And here in the Midwest, we go about things. And I've never been to Texas, but I heard it's a lot like, it's kind of like the outposts in the corners. I've been to Florida. It's way different in Florida. I have a friend that lives down at Melbourne Beach, and we went to Melbourne, and we went to the beach, Cocoa Beach, right? And the women down there, they're like wearing next to nothing. It was a little bit of a culture shock for me. And even at night, it'd go out and like the women are wearing like nothing. And I was like, I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool, but I was just like, wow, nobody's wearing any clothes. And they're like, it's Florida. I was like, wow, this is weird down here, but I like it. California, it's kind of the same way, not with the scantily clad people, but it's just a different. And Texas is kind of the same way. Everybody in Texas, they all think like, how do they think that's like they're all businessmen or something? They're all like, I go back, they all think they're, like from the TV show Dallas back in the day, cowboy hats and, they're weird. I don't say they're weird. They're different. That doesn't necessarily, I embrace diversity. I like diversity. Well, I grew up a Cowboys fan. I know when I talked with a friend that was living in Dallas, speaking of women, scantily clad women, he lived in Dallas and he was in his 20s. And I said, what do you think of Dallas? He's like, what I really like is Texas Christian. I love going over there and picking up all the women. All right. I remember how actually I got on that. Oh, TCU, they're acting wild. Yeah, they are acting wild. Get some last thoughts being here. Jason, being follically challenged, absolutely love JJ's golden locks. I know skin is in and bald is beautiful, yet grow it out, JJ. Keep it for as long as you can. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't mind. It's very easy maintenance. Like today, I had my, I didn't spend much time with my hair today. There it is. But if I could trade, not now I wouldn't have, but hair's nice. Have a nice head of hair, and JJ's got that. How many bald quarterbacks have there been? A few. Hasselbeck. Any other ones? Bradshaw back in the day, I think, was a bald QB. Is Kojo gone after this year? My prediction, no. Hadley, I feel you. Your opinion on the Michigan basketball game last night. The summary is just one word: embarrassing. You don't lose to an under 500 team. Well, Hadley, we had gone this whole show, everything nice, and now you got to bring up basketball. Now you got to go back to last night and basketball. Well, I'll just tell everybody I talked about the basketball game last night on the Michigan basketball postgame live show, which you can find on the podcast page or on YouTube. And no, embarrassing is a good word for it, Hadley. And I was going to take today and tomorrow, and I was just going to not think about the Michigan basketball team because they're playing on Sunday, January the 1st, and I'll be on after that game talking about Michigan's home opener in the Big Ten. Actually, I guess it's a restart because they already have played Minnesota. But it is actually their home opener because they played Minnesota on the road. But yeah, embarrassing is a good word for it. When you got Terry Mills who's doing the game, the color analyst on the home radio, and saying, I question this team's effort. What? You got the home broadcast team questioning the team's effort. That's not good. You're getting some cover here for these 2 days from the football team. Lucky for them. Come on, Hadley. Anyone else glad this game is tomorrow so we can stop talking about the 3-3-5? Yeah. I'm done talking about the 3-3-5 blank. There's some Rich Rod thoughts. There's some Stu and Rich Rod. Kind of have the same people going after him kind of the same way. Mullings or Stokes can spell Dono in this game. They should get plenty of opportunities. Michigan's run game will roll. Yeah, I think both of those guys. I think it depends where it's at on the field. Short yardage situations, I think you'll see a little bit more of Mullings, but I think Stokes will get a little play here or there. Here's a rating of McDonough and Blackledge as a C- broadcast team. I don't really mind them, but I would put Johnson and Klatt in front of McDonough and Blackledge myself. Adam is with me. He thinks that Dono is going to have a big game. Hell yeah. Come on. Adam likes the hometown broadcast crew. There you go. Richard with the hot take. He thinks Gash is going to get in there and get a few carries. Michigan Man says, I would rather listen to Steve Deese broadcast, and he's annoying. Yeah, I think I know who that is. Is he like the Republican dude out in Iowa that runs a Michigan podcast? I've sampled a few of the Michigan podcasts. That particular one, I was going to watch it, but he had like a 5-minute intro, and he was sitting at this little desk with a stack of books, and I'm like, I don't know if I really want to listen to this guy talk about Michigan football. And so I turned it off. I didn't. Here's some other people taking a shot at him. Hey, you know what? I tell you about this. He had a hell of a lot of followers and a hell of a lot of views. So, like probably 20,000 more than what I'm getting, but I just started, kind of. And so I'm coming for him. I'm coming for you, dude. I know this, man. If any of these guys out there that are talking Michigan, if any of them, I don't think any of them, if you handed them a football or basketball, they would know what to do with it. I'm not saying I'm the greatest athlete, but I'm better than all those guys. Come on. Let's be honest. You should at least be able to, like, throw a football 10 yards. Or, be able to shoot a basketball for more than a free throw. I mean, if I put Steve Deese and Chris Ballas and Sam Webb out at the 3-point line and gave those guys 100 shots, are they making 5? Any of them? Could they throw a football over 10 feet? Any of those guys? Hey, you know what? You can talk Michigan football. There's no qualifications for having any athletic ability, obviously, to be able to talk Michigan. Hey, take a couple shots here. And 2022 rolling down. Now here I am getting a little mean, getting a little salty. Let's do it. I could sit here for another hour talking about these feedback. So let's go to the end of the line here and just see where people are at. Andres doesn't care about basketball. I think a count 22. Good vibes only today and tomorrow. I'm with you. Yeah, look at these guys. No, they didn't like that basketball talk. Yeah, no basketball talk. No taking shots at other people. No more 3-3-5 talks. Let's get to the Dr. Pepper challenge. Here's somebody that likes the guy. Antoine likes Sam. Yeah, I bet you do. Antoine, he's a nice guy. I was just talking about that he probably couldn't hit a shot from 10 feet. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean anything. Not really. Let's get back to where I was. I've been screenshotting some of the feedback, and here's one from Phil, who I took a shot of a little while ago. And Phil pointed out that, tomorrow's going to be great and everything. But he said, let's just look ahead a little bit, even past the national championship game. Michigan is stacked next year as well. They will be preseason number 1 and will three-peat. Book it. And, that is a fun thing to think about. That's something that I hadn't really thought about much. I think Michigan is going to be stacked next year. I think, I don't know about preseason number 1, but I'll say preseason number 5. And I think that Michigan can three-peat in the Big Ten next year. And then maybe we could be talking about back-to-back for a national championship. Oh, I love it. And that's the thing. Like, it was only 2 years ago. It's like, it's what winning can do for you. You got to get the first one. And that's what they're after. That's why they need to get the win tomorrow, so they can get themselves into the championship game and they can win that one. Then you can start talking about back-to-back. And then you can, and if they get that first one, we will talk about back-to-back. But then when you talk about back-to-back-to-back and you do talk about a three-peat, I think you can already talk about a three-peat in the Big Ten, but you start talking about back-to-back once you get one coming up in, just 10 days, the national championship game. But they got to get that one and get it out there and make it happen tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, I'll be on with Jim Scarcelli after the game. Michigan football post-game live. After the Michigan TCU game, we'll talk about how it went down. If you missed that and you're on to other things like, the next game, or just remember, New Year's Day, you wake up, the podcast is available. You can go back and watch it on video and do all those things. And if I don't talk with you before tomorrow night, midnight, everybody have a great and safe New Year's Eve. Have a great New Year's Day. And then Monday, a lot of people are off sitting around watching football. I think I'll be doing that too. But I think I'll be here talking with you for at least a little bit on Monday. I think we have to do that. Let's do it. Until then, thanks for watching. And enjoy the ball game tomorrow. See ya.